And Mr. Russ Brown, do you have a hand yet on what your roster is going to look like in the fall? Or does that stand?
I believe the question was about what our roster will look like in the fall. And as baseball coaches, there's always uncertainty at this time of the year, preparing for the draft and what seniors in high school or junior college kids are going to show up and which of your current players are going to sign. The big caveat this year, the curveball thrown at us, is right now could be as few as 5 rounds. Maybe we'll get to 10 rounds. So for just some history for all you guys, 40 rounds a year, 1,200 guys get drafted, about 800 players sign every year. This year, if there's 5 rounds, that's 150 picks. 10 rounds, we got 300. So there's no way 800 kids are signing, which means more kids will be in college baseball. The real number is the juniors. It's the junior class that averages about 400 plus juniors every year. College juniors are getting drafted with 95% of them signing. So the challenge will be our junior class when you break down all of our prospects from Detmers, Miller, Kirian, Dunn, Britton, Brown, Bianco, Albanese, and you go down the list of all of our juniors. We obviously can't lose all of our juniors in 5 rounds. We feel like we could lose most of them if there's 10 rounds. So as we're in talks with MLB executives and college baseball is communicating closely, this is not just affecting Louisville's roster. I mean, this is affecting especially the top, let's say, 100 baseball programs in the country. And so right now we're just kind of waiting for the number of rounds as well as, communication with the NCAA and will we get some relief? If you're familiar with baseball, we're one of the stricter limited sports when it comes to roster spots, scholarship limits, equivalency. So as you can imagine, it's a real challenge that we're all trying to decipher through. We know Detmers, we're hearing is a top 10 pick. We're hearing Bobby Miller has a chance to be a first-round pick. So those are 2 juniors we'll lose. We'll wait to see if Kirian, Britton, Dunn, and those other guys get into the top 5 rounds, if there's only 5 rounds. And then, of course, the seniors were granted relief, but we think Luke Smith could be in the top 5 rounds. And then Elliott, Oriente, and Levy, if they don't go in the top 5 or 10 rounds, would they have an option to sign free agents? So we're having a lot of communication right now with a lot of players.
Coach, this is Matt McGavick with Sports Illustrated. So I'd say it's a safe assumption that the seniors are not going to decide if they will exercise the ability to come back until after the Major League draft is concluded.
That's a very safe assessment as they're academically graduating, hoping to get a chance to play professionally. So they're just got to wait and see. Are they in the top 5 or 10 rounds? And if they're not, would they sign a free agent offer? The good news is, we're able to support them coming back if we do have a couple seniors that want to come back. And those seniors, just so you know, to be clear, those seniors won't count on our roster limit and they won't count on our scholarship equivalency. So even if we don't get relief, the seniors are a separate item.
It's Fred Callaghan from WLKY. Would you talk about Detmers for a second and what makes him so special?
I think everybody sees the big breaking ball very much like Brendan McKay. And it's a strong pitcher. So the value of the K, as the offense values the home run, the defense values the strikeout, because as we've learned, when you strike a guy out, You don't need a defense behind him, and there's no chance the ball can leave the ballpark if it's put in play. So Reed is a high strikeout pitcher, almost 2 an inning, between 1 and 2 an inning, and kind of picked up where he left off last spring with USA Baseball and the first month of the season. So all projections are, we feel like he's a guy that could definitely go in those top 10 rounds. And not to mention, like all of Coach Williams' pitchers, they develop. So as a freshman, they might be a 2-pitch guy. As a sophomore, they might be a 3-pitch guy. And as a junior, they become usually 4-pitch guys. With the changeup gets better. A cutter or slider becomes a 4th pitch. And so all the things I say about Reed Detmers, you could also say about Bobby Miller with his development, his growth, and he's one of the fastest rising guys up the draft board.
Coach Michael McCammon, Cardinal Authority here. Andrew Benefield has popped in the transfer portal. What was that process like, and do you anticipate any other guys potentially looking at that route?
Andrew's a bright kid, and he had a lot of positive things to say. He loved his time with us. I think from an offensive standpoint, he just looked at a lot of returners. And, Andrew plays the infield, is his primary position, and Vanellis, Metzinger, Borden, Poland, and that group of also talented infielders, he felt like might be a little too crowded for him. He could move to the outfield, but he wants to play the infield, and that was his doing. He called me up one day. I thought it was because I was on him about a class, as I've been this last month academically and challenging him, and he called me and just said, Coach, we've been talking about this a lot, and he would love to go play shortstop somewhere. He probably realizes if he gets a chance to play pro ball, he's a corner, third base, first base, maybe left field, right field. So he was just looking for an opportunity where he was just going to get more at bats and maybe more of a chance to play the middle.
Dan Brooks again, that part thing. As far as the rounds are concerned, what's your best guess? Most of the things I've seen, 5 rounds is expected. Yes, and then you mentioned relief. Ideal is what the relief.
I believe you asked about my guesstimate on the rounds, and was the second part relief for players?
Yeah, well, you and financial relief, whatever you're referring to in that regard.
I think I got your question. The first on the rounds, Major League Baseball about a month ago came out and said, we will at least have 5 rounds, which is, I guess we say, the worst case scenario. They're not playing baseball. They're not selling tickets. They're not, selling concessions and parking. And so obviously Major League Baseball is dealing with a financial concern. So to have 40 rounds is just a lot of money to dish out that you're not making. And 2, you don't really have a place to send them right now. So they made it clear we'll at least have 5 rounds. Obviously the scouts and the organizations who work extremely hard, they would love for 10 rounds because there's a lot of talented players. And you look at the history of our program, and guys like Duvall, Engel, Green, and all these other guys that didn't go in the top 5 rounds, but are big leaguers and having really nice careers. So the scouts and the organizations would love to have 10 rounds. As a college coach, I'd love to have 10 rounds because I know our guys are ready. Athletically, they're ready. Academically, they're in great standings. So, yeah, I mean, there's a side you'd love to have some of these guys play for you again, but you also know that they're ready. And we made preparations for them to leave if they choose to. It's never an exact science, and you always have a guy who comes back. Justin Levy decided to come back Chris Dominguez came back. Andrew Clark came back. I mean, so the law of averages, you're always going to get a guy or two that even though you thought might sign is going to come back. The challenge with only 5 rounds is you'll have a larger number of guys coming back. And as well as the question Michael asked, you could have a handful of guys that probably choose to go in another direction, not because they don't like it here, because they worry about the opportunity that they would get to play. The other part about relief is we're allowed 27 guys on aid with a 35-man roster limit. Again, that's with 400 or so juniors signing every year. So the reality is, there's going to be about 300 juniors that just can't sign because there's only 150 picks, and let's just say 50 high school kids get taken and 100 juniors or seniors. So there's going to be 300 plus more really good juniors in college baseball that have to come back. And we're going to need some form of relief. Whether we get more scholarship money or not, because when you say more scholarship money, well, that obviously has a financial piece to it, and that scares a lot of people. I get it. But even without more scholarship money, we need roster spots and we need expansion on the roster. So because in baseball, you have a lot of guys that they're on dollar amounts. They might be on a 1-year, 2-year. They might have been front loaded or back loaded. So first, let's make sure we have a spot for these guys. Let's not tie college baseball's hands. Well, yeah, you can only have 35. Well, that worked in the past. That's not going to work now. So let's expand the rosters. And it's going to be hard to deny a kid a scholarship when he signed it in November. We didn't know about an epidemic. So you're just hoping that you say the NCAA, but it's more than them. It's presidents, ADs, it's conferences. You just hope everybody takes in all the information and tries to do the right thing. So at least I always say, let kids have the option. I think letting all the seniors come back was the right thing to do, whether you can afford it or not. Let the kids have the option. If they want to come back, if they're on scholarship, whether they're not, if they can afford to come back, give the student athlete the option. And that's what we're hoping for when we say relief. Give us more than 27 spots. Give us more than 35. Even if you don't give us more scholarship money, meaning even if we have to stay at 11.7, give us some relief. And that's what hopefully we find out in the next week or two. We're hoping the draft is around June 10th. Don't know if that'll happen. And we're hoping to get an answer on the scholarship relief and the roster relief. I mean, the sooner the better for everybody.
Dan, this is Aaron Matus from WDRB. Has there been any more discussion about what teams can offer guys as undrafted free agents versus what they would have gotten slotted as a 6th, 7th, or 11th or 12th round pick?
Yeah, it's a good question because the rounds are slotted. And so anything after the 5th round, if there's only 5 rounds, we've been told is a $20,000 cap, meaning, so let's just say Justin Levy doesn't get drafted in the top 5 rounds, but we'd love to have a shortstop in our organization. The most they can give him is $20,000. And again, that's coming down from the top, from the owners through MLB, because, yeah, you don't want Luke Smith doesn't get drafted in the top 5 rounds, or for some reason Michael Carrion, and then you try to a bidding war starts with guys like that, and they're just saying, look, we don't have the resources and the finances to get into bidding wars right now. So they've been pretty clear. So whether there's 5 rounds or 10 rounds, anything outside of those rounds, I think will be a $20,000 cap. And I think it'll be limited to how many guys, because the biggest fear right now is, where do we send these guys? Where do we, if we're not playing, at least the NFL has some time before they have to send those guys off. And typically in baseball, the draft was while pro ball was already going on. So you would sign the dotted line, and within 24, 48 hours, you were getting shipped off to a city or a town somewhere. Well, now, what are they going to do when they sign these guys? And so that's another reason for limiting the number of probably free agents you could get and making it up to 20,000.
So do you think guys will have to make a decision that might say something along the lines of, hey, I know I can get more next year as a 7th or 8th round pick, so it's worth my while to play one more year of college baseball?
No doubt. It's a great point because we use a guy like Lucas Dunn, for example. The good thing about all the juniors, and rightfully so, they get the junior year back. So if Lucas Dunn doesn't go in the top 5 rounds, he shouldn't have to settle and just sign for 15,000 or 20. He could come back, have a good senior year, or let's call it redshirt junior year. And you said it, if he's a 7th rounder, he could get 180,000 or 200,000, and so, yes, there's going to be a lot of kids that shouldn't have to settle because everyone got the year of eligibility. If they didn't get the year of eligibility, then they would be treated as seniors. And it's just weird in baseball. When you're an underclassman and you have leverage, you get paid. When you're a senior, not that you don't ever get paid as a senior, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them get the, hey, this is what we'll give you. And if you don't, I mean, where are you going to go work? You can't go back and play. And so seniors in the past haven't had a lot of leverage, but the Lucas Dunns, the Michael Kirians, the Zach Brittons, the Glenn Albaneses, the Luke Browns, if these guys aren't in the top 5 rounds, at least they're still in a good position.
Coach, this is Matt McGavick again. How was minor league baseball's uncertainty once the season resumed and next season? How has that impacted their decisions to potentially go pro or come back?
Well, the commissioner, has been talking about this for years, and it probably became more public in the last 6 months when he talked about he wants to shorten the number of teams in minor league baseball. Right now, there's about 280 players per organization with 6+ levels: AAA, AA, high A ball, low A, rookie ball, and then extended spring team. So you have about 6 to 8 teams with 280 players in an organization. And he has been public over the last 6 months, maybe even longer, about, I don't want that many guys in an organization. I don't want that many teams in minor league baseball. Now, he's getting resistance because those minor league towns and it's a way of helping the economy in these small minor league towns across the country. But it looks like they are going to shorten the number of roster. They're going to shorten the number of teams. They're going to cut it down to maybe 4 minor league teams instead of 6 or 8. And therefore, they're going to cut the rounds down from 40. We'll never go back to 40 again. And if I'm a betting man, I'm saying next June, let's hope we get back to football and some normalcy and a good 2021 year. I think we'll have 20 rounds in the future. And I think that they feel much better with, instead of 1,200 picks a year, 600 picks a year is plenty. And let more guys go to school. College is doing a great job of preparing guys. And then if we feel it's a Mike Trout or one of those type of superstars, then we'll grab them. But similar to what college basketball did, or shouldn't say what the NBA did when they started sending more guys to college, the commissioner just didn't feel like we needed 40 rounds and we needed to put all these guys in lower level baseball. So a lot of changes are going to be made over the next, 1 to 2 years.
Dan Russ again. What's been the impact on recruits? Because they really don't know, I guess, if there's going to be a space. And then how many of you actually signed for next season?
We've communicated with every commitment. And, we typically sign anywhere from 10 to 12 guys on some scholarship. We'll have some other guys coming in on maybe academic or need-based aid. And so it's kind of like when Zach Lucas didn't sign his junior year and came back for his senior year. Well, that had Blake Taberry behind him, and that had Drew Ellis behind him. So it was unfortunate for Drew Ellis, because then Drew Ellis was third on the depth chart, and we decided to redshirt Drew Ellis. He wasn't happy at the time. I'm sure he'll tell you now it was great that it happened. But if Zach Lucas had signed, Blake Taberry's the starting third baseman, Drew Ellis is the backup, and he letters as a freshman. Zach Lucas comes back for his senior year. Blake Taberry's the backup. Drew Ellis redshirts. 2 years later, Drew Ellis is a second-round pick, signed for $1.5 million. So it didn't halt. It just changed the course early in his career. And that's what we've been trying to communicate with our signees. It doesn't mean every signee's redshirting and they don't need to worry about that. It's more about, yeah, the roster could be a little more crowded this year than we thought it would be, but it's all going to catch up, because next year, even though they're redshirt sophomores, Henry Davis, Ben Metzinger, Tim Borden, Jared Poland, and all those rising juniors, they're all draft eligible. They're all academically in a good spot. They're all going to be ready to sign for the most part. So as we communicated with a lot of kids and families, the roster could be a little crowded in year one, but don't panic, because as I always say, if the freshman year is the highlight of your career, you probably didn't have a great career. And I can go through a lot of stories of guys hitting 220 or ERAs over 5, or guys just not playing at all and redshirting. And then by their sophomore year, junior year, everything works out. They have great careers and it all works. So it's just something right now they have to understand. There's an unknown, and we're communicating with guys and just trying to make sure we control what we can control and try to help these guys be prepared when they show up.
Any other questions for Dan? Okay, hearing none. Dan, we appreciate your time today, and appreciate all the media that joined us today.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Hopefully we'll hear something soon on when the draft will be.
Great.
Thank